Welcome back, Science Jags. Thank you for joining this week's episode of Science Periodically, the show where you get a nice break while learning about the School of Science. Now, today's topic is undergraduate research at the School of Science. I've actually asked a few friends from the School of Science to join me today to kind of talk about their experiences in research, which some have actually begun as early as their freshman year. Now, we do also have biology professor Dr. Randall Roper. He's going to be talking about his research regarding Down syndrome and kind of share his experience with working with student researchers. We do also have our science recruiter, Lori Hart, who is working kind of behind the scenes today, and we'll be answering pretty much any questions in the chat that I might not be able to, and kind of sending out any links that you guys are going to want to have. Now, we're also going to be joined by a couple of science students, Alexa, Alexis, and David, who all have been involved in undergraduate research here at Iupui. Now, you might be asking yourself, Dustin, what are the benefits of doing research? There's nothing to like the thrill of discovery, making an original kind of intellectual or creative contribution to your discipline. You'll experience how fulfilling and fun it is when your kind of like research or your creative project kind of reveals a kind of like a new understanding that could change how people kind of think and live. So under faculty supervision, you'll play a significant role in IUPUI's research endeavors. So research experience actually does help you gather serious credentials for whatever dream career you might have. So you can actually really expand your professional network, present your research at national and international events, and also kind of get your results in real time, which is always nice. Now, we do also have all 9 of our academic units with real world research occurring right here at the School of Science. So you can join the search for new medications, help kind of create better forensics techniques, assist in the development of algorithms for machine learning, investigate the biomechanical connections between vascular function and optical nerve damage, which is actually for math, which always surprises me. Now, no matter what your passion is, there's sure to be a research project in progress that will appeal to you. So our faculty's research touches virtually every area of the scientific world, if I do say so. There are many research opportunities involved at IUPUI outside of the School of Science, though through programs such as the Life Health Science Internship Program, which places health career-minded individuals with teams of professionals at sites in both the IUPUI graduate and professional programs, such as the IU School of Medicine, as well as hospitals both on and near the campus. So this is actually a program for sophomores and juniors, but I like to say it's never too early to kind of keep that on your radar. You are also going to want to check out the Center for Research and Learning, which offers mentored research opportunities and a variety of research-based scholarships that you can apply for through IUPUI. Some programs have larger scholarships and housing stipends available for incoming freshmen, such as the Diversity Scholars Research Program and Norman Brown Diversity and Leadership Scholars Program, which are directed towards academically talented incoming students from underrepresented populations, which if you are an admitted student, you can apply for now through the IU Scholarships portal through, I believe it's February 15th. Now, there's also the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program grants, which is available for the academic year or the summer to support independent faculty mentored research. Students may apply either for a stipend or for funds for research materials. There's also the Multidisciplinary Undergraduate Research Institute, which creates and supports multidisciplinary research teams, which is consisting of undergraduate and graduate students, postdoc fellows, senior staff, and faculty. The primary purpose of these teams is kind of to provide a unique. Oh, it looks like Lori just said the DSRP deadline has been extended to March 1st, so do take that into consideration as well. And as I was saying, the primary purpose of these teams is to provide undergraduates a unique opportunity to gain research skills by working with mentors on real-world problems. You can also visit crl.iupui.edu for more information on these programs and other opportunities, or kind of look for a follow-up email from us tomorrow, which is going to have this information as well. So don't worry about having to write it down or memorize it. Now, if you guys are also interested in computer science or artificial intelligence, you'll really like to hear about this one. So IUPUI has launched a new research institute to develop cutting-edge artificial intelligence technologies. The Institute for Integrative Artificial Intelligence at IUPUI is directed by our own computer science chair, Dr. Fong. We're also excited to announce that a new Bachelor of Science degree in Artificial Intelligence will be offered at IUPUI beginning this fall. Now, AI does have a hand in pretty much all sciences, not just computer science. So we are more than excited to see the initiatives that are going to be supported by the Institute. Now, we do have our first guest for today, which is Dr. Randall Roper, whose research seeks to kind of understand the genetic and developmental basis of phenotypes related to trisomy 21, which is also known as Down syndrome. So I want to say welcome, Dr. Roper. So if you want to turn your camera on, get everything going, I'll also turn over the screen for you. There you are. Awesome. So how are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you. It's good to be with everybody.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah. So like I said, if you have a presentation, you're more than welcome to put it up on the screen. You have full access to it. But as you're kind of putting that up, I do kind of have a question right off the bat. So what advice would you kind of give to prospective freshmen or transfer students about getting involved in research as an undergrad?
So first of all, IUPUI is a fantastic place to become involved with research very early in your career. And I would advise you to start early. So I have freshmen in their first semester that begin in my laboratory, and they begin learning the skills of my laboratory. And some of those students will stay in my laboratory for 4 years. So my recommendation is start early, as early as you feel comfortable, get to know professors and get into a lab setting, because a lab setting, you'll make new friends, you'll have a mentor to talk to. It's just a wonderful opportunity. Are there other questions, or do you want me to go ahead, Dustin?
You're more than welcome to go ahead. We'll kind of do the Q&A a little bit after this.
All right. So my laboratory studies Down syndrome, and it's known that Down syndrome occurs in about 1 out of 700 to 1,000 live births. The incidence of Down syndrome seems to be steady or increasing, and there are about 200,000 people with Down syndrome living in the United States right now. Now, we can recognize people with Down syndrome because they have distinct skeletal features. So on the left, you see this gentleman with Down syndrome who has the typical cranial facial features, the particular facial features that we notice. And so when we see somebody in the supermarket or walking down the street with Down syndrome, we say, oh, they have Down syndrome. On the right, you can see a picture, and the young lady on the right has Down syndrome. We can see she has short stature. So one of the things that my laboratory is interested in learning about is why these deficits occur. And my laboratory studies both skeletal features associated with Down syndrome as well as cognitive features associated with Down syndrome. So here on the left is a representation of human chromosome 21. We know that 3 copies of this chromosome causes Down syndrome. And we are interested in, here are all the genes that are encoded on that chromosome. We are interested in how one or more of these genes cause some of the phenotypes, one or more of the phenotypes associated with Down syndrome. And there are about 80 clinical phenotypes. So one of the genes that we're interested in is called DYRK1A. And one of the abnormalities that we're studying are skeletal abnormalities. So we use, as was mentioned, we use mouse models, but we have a problem here because the genes on human chromosome 21 are actually found on 3 different chromosomes in the mouse, chromosome 10, 17, and 16. So it's not easy to make a model of Down syndrome, although a number of people have made some pretty good models. A model that was made about 30 years ago is called the TS65DN mouse. And this mouse model has about half of the genes that are found on human chromosome 21, also found on mouse chromosome 16 in 3 copies. And so with these half of the genes, we have a pretty good genetic model that we can understand possibly what these genes are doing in particular Down syndrome phenotypes. So some of the phenotypes or some of the traits that these mice have, these TS65 Down syndrome model mice, they have behavioral phenotypes. They have the typical craniofacial features. They have a short midface, a flattened nose. They have heart phenotypes, learning and memory phenotypes. And one of the phenotypes that we're really interested in, of course, is skeletal phenotypes. So some of the things that we're trying to do in our laboratory is we're trying to understand, well, how does this gene called DYRK1A cause some of these skeletal phenotypes? And so a couple of the things that we're doing is we're trying to manipulate our mouse models to see if we can understand a little bit more about what DYRK1A is doing and how that affects the skeletal phenotypes. So what we are doing to determine what DYRK1A does is we are doing some genetic experiments where we actually reduce the DYRK1A gene copy to normal numbers in an otherwise trisomic mouse. So we can, through genetic engineering and other techniques, we can have an otherwise Down syndrome mouse now that only has 2 copies of DYRK1A. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to be able to treat our mouse models with something that will inhibit DYRK1A. And so that if we knock down the expression of DYRK1A to normal levels, that it might normalize some of the phenotypes, and in our case, normalize some of the skeletal phenotypes. So what we want to do, and what we have done, is we've looked at our mouse model. And here on the left, you can see a mouse. This is a normal mouse. So normal mice are on the left. Top ones are 6 weeks of age. Bottom ones are 16 weeks of age. So this is basically an adolescent mouse, what would be considered adolescent, comparable to adolescent ages in humans. This is basically when you reach full bone growth in humans. And so we've got, excuse me, normal mice, and we've got our Down syndrome mice. And what we have here is the femur. And where this red line here, we've taken kind of a section of the distal femur, and you can look at the bone. So this is what is called trabecular bone. And what you can see here is that in the normal mice, you have a lot of this bone structure, a lot of this trabeculae. In the Down syndrome mice, number one, it's smaller, and you see fewer trabeculae. And that happens at both 6 and 16 weeks. If we look once again in the femur, and we look here in the cortical bone, so this is where the bone gets its strength, we see once again at 6 weeks and 16 weeks, we see that in trisomic mice, this is smaller, that there's less bone area there. There's less bone there at both 6 and 16 weeks. And ultimately what this does, and we can take these bones, and we do take these bones, and we can actually break them. And we can show that they're not as strong. So because they don't have as much material, they don't have as much bone here, they will break, and they will break easier than normal bones. And this is what some of these graphs are showing. So what we can do in the laboratory is now, as I told you, we can take our Down syndrome mice, we can breed it to a mouse that only has 1 functional copy of DYRK1A. And now we can get some normal mice, and we can get some Down syndrome mice, and we can get some Down syndrome mice with only 2 copies of DYRK1A. And then we can say, did we correct the phenotype? And so we've done this. This is a normal mouse at 6 weeks of age. This is a trisomic mouse. Once again, you can see the trabeculae, not as much trabeculae here. This is one of our Down syndrome mouse models with only 2 copies of DYRK1A. So we've gotten rid of that 3rd copy of DYRK1A. Boom. A lot of it has been normalized in the trabeculae. And so by doing that, we can say, oh, DYRK1A is really important in causing deficits. 3 copies of DYRK1A is really important in causing deficits in our Down syndrome mouse model. Well, now that we have a gene, then we can begin to think about what this protein does. And we can begin to think about, can we inhibit the actions of this protein? So we've been working on this as well. And especially in the last 10 years in my laboratory, we have been working with a green tea polyphenol called epigallocatechin gallate, or EGCG. Basically, it's the most common polyphenol found in green tea. It can cross the placental and the blood-brain barriers, and in vitro, it's been shown to inhibit DYRK1A activity. And so we've done a lot of studies with EGCG and our mouse models of Down syndrome. And what we've shown is that at very low levels, EGCG may actually enhance some of the trabecular bone. But once you get into higher levels, it does not. And it actually, in fact, worsens the bone. And so we've done these studies on, we've done studies of the cognitive deficits as well. And we found that EGCG, giving EGCG to our Down syndrome mouse models, does not improve the cognitive deficits that are linked to DYRK1A. So we are continuing. One of the things that we're doing in our laboratory is we're continuing to look at when DYRK1A is very important. And so we've learned during development, there's a specific window of about 10 days when DYRK1A overexpression is important in skeletal deficits. And in cognitive deficits, there's a window of about 6 days where overexpression of DYRK1A is important. And so now that we've got this time range, we have other treatments that we are using and other genetic manipulations we are doing at these particular times to see if we limit the activity of DYRK1A or the amount of DYRK1A at these specific developmental times, if we can correct or if we can improve some of the Down syndrome phenotypes. So this is just some of the work we're doing in our lab. I have a rather large laboratory. This is pre-COVID, so all of these people are not still in my laboratory because they've graduated, but I just want to tell you that all but 3 of the people in these pictures are undergraduate students who have worked in my lab. So many of them started out as freshmen. Some started later. Some of these students have worked for 4 years in my laboratory doing research. And so it's quite a group we have. Right now I have 5 graduate students and 12 undergraduate students that are working in my lab. Because of COVID, we have to take a number of precautions, but we do. We can only have so many people working at a time, and if somebody's sick, they cannot come in. You know, what's interesting is this work takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, and a lot of collaboration. And so some of the work that we're doing, we of course collaborate with people here at Iupui. We collaborate with people, a lot of the work that we're doing with our bone work, we actually collaborate with people in the UK, and we're working with them on a lot of this bone work. And of course, we're always grateful to the mice. The mice do us much good and help us to really learn about Down syndrome. And we're grateful for the people who help fund this. We're funded by the National Institutes of Health, as well as the Jerome Lejeune Foundation, and we receive funding from a number of other foundations. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll take questions if you have them.
That's actually perfect. We actually do have 2 questions in the chat that are for you. So the first one is, how often are you breeding mice for your experiments?
How often are we breeding mice for our experiments? 365 days a year. We have a colony. And so what's interesting about our Down syndrome mouse models, we just can't go buy them. They're very expensive, so we buy a few of them and we breed them in our own facility. So we are always breeding mice in our facility and trying to generate more mice for our experiments.
Well, that's valid. So, okay, this is actually a good one that you can answer. Somebody asked, can I work with professors who do not teach me?
Can you work for professors who do not teach you, so you are not in their classes?
Right.
Okay, so none of the undergraduate students that are in my lab have I ever had in any classes. They've only been doing research. I actually teach, the undergraduate class that I teach is in biomedical engineering. And I've had some biomedical engineering students in my lab, but none of the students that work in my lab, none of the undergraduate students that work in my lab, I didn't meet them in classes. They came to me other ways. So yes, you can work with professors that you don't take classes with.
That's good to know. I like hearing that. Oh, okay. Do you do any specific research with humans?
Yes, we do. So we have a great collaboration. What's really cool about being here in Indianapolis is there's a number of hospitals, and you have the dental school here right on campus, 10 minutes away. We have an ongoing collaboration with the Down syndrome clinic at Riley Hospital that's a 10-minute walk. And so we have published 3 papers in conjunction with them about things that we see in humans with Down syndrome. And that collaboration is really important because someday, and hopefully sooner than later, we'd like to translate some of our work into humans so we can help improve the lives in perhaps just some small way of individuals with Down syndrome.
Yeah. Now I do see this question in chat, so I guess you can definitely tack onto this, but I will say right off the bat, the question is it possible to collaborate with other universities or colleges in the Indianapolis area? And I immediately will say we do have a ton of students who do research with the IU School of Medicine. So actually one of the students on the panel does. Now, we do also have some of our science researchers who have joint research with other universities that don't necessarily have to be in the Indy area, which actually Dr. Roper mentioned. So do you have anything you want to tack onto that?
I collaborate with scientists here in the United States. I collaborate with scientists throughout the world. In fact, we're starting to get an international mouse population. Let's see, pretty soon I'll have mice from Japan, from France. I have mice from Spain. I have mice from the United States. They're coming from all over the place. So we even mouse collaborate.
I love that. Oh my gosh. All right. Oh, here we go. Is there any other research project that is going on currently in IUPUI that you find interesting apart from your own?
Oh, there are a number of fantastic research projects. I mean, there are too many to enumerate. I'm really interested in a lot of the cognitive deficits and in a lot of the, we have a great neuroscience program in looking at the neuroscience of addiction, and people in that area are just doing some fantastic research that I'm really interested in. There's a lot of great bone research. I'm a geneticist, and so I'm collaborating with these people because I wasn't trained to be a bone biologist, but we have fantastic bone biologists here at IUPUI, and some of their work is just awesome and cutting edge. So it's fantastic just to be a part of that kind of community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am actually going to also introduce the students onto the panel. So again, if you guys have any questions for Dr. Roper, you guys can definitely send them through the Q&A button, which you have been doing, which is also located on the bottom of your screen. I'm more than happy to address those. With that being said, I'd like to also introduce our science students. That is Alexis, and David. So if you guys can introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about like your experience with research at IUPUI, that'd be great. And we'll start off with Alexa and work our way down alphabetically.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexa. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a junior here at IUPUI. I'm double majoring in psychology and American Sign Language English interpreting. My research I've been doing for the past 3 years. I'm a part of DSRP, which is mentioned earlier, Diversity Scholars Research Program. And with that, I was able to connect with Dr. Logrip, and I work in her addiction neuroscience lab. So that's been really cool.
So I'm Alexis. I am a forensic biology and a biology major. I'm graduating this semester, so this is my last semester here. And I work at IU School of Medicine with Dr. George Sandusky in the pathology department.
My name is David, and I am a junior as of this year, and I work with Dr. Ariza Balaga at the IU School of Medicine in the Pharmacology and Toxicology department.
I love hearing that, man. That's awesome. So I do have like a generic list of questions, like mostly frequently asked for us, but I do encourage you guys again to kind of put your questions in the chat so we can kind of answer them without having to worry about if we're going to touch on it or not, right? So right off the bat, I've got somebody asking, is it possible to do undergraduate research while studying abroad? And okay. Well, actually, before we go into that, I do want to talk so people can get a little bit more of their questions kind of flowing a little bit. Can you guys talk a little bit more specifically about kind of what your lab does? You want to start off, Alexa?
Sure. So my work with Dr. Loper is really cool. I'm studying sex differences. Specifically, my last project, I'm still working on what I'm trying to figure out for this semester, but last semester I was focused on the AMPA receptors in the dorsolateral striatum and how sex differences impact it based on alcohol intake and stress history, and how we can see anxiety like behavior based on that change. So I'm specifically looking at the dorsolateral striatum because it has to do with habituation, and we're interested in kind of looking at how the habit of drinking and continually drinking has those effects on the different sexes. So that's kind of what I work with under Dr. Logrip. Her lab is addiction neuroscience, so we look at a lot of the times alcohol and stress and those differences in the sexes.
So for me, my research is a little bit different. I have a bunch of hodgepodge research. So what my lab does is we actually don't do a lot of our own research where Dr. Sandusky is the main PI on it. What we do is we actually take on a lot of other researchers' pathology data from them, and we analyze it for them and send it back. So I worked on a lupus kidney study. I worked on several COVID studies. I've done most recently breast cancer. We do get a lot of other cancers because we do work with Riley and all other things like that. But yeah, so we get a lot of different projects that we get to do. We get to touch on a lot of stuff. It's really fun.
So my lab specifically focuses on the parasite known as T. gondii or Toxoplasmos gondii. And my research specifically focuses on understanding the lytic cycle and how the parasite itself maintains homeostasis. And specifically with that parasite, we look at the organelle that was, if I remember correctly, is the plant-like organelle. It's not the most scientifically name, but we just mainly look into the calcium stores and how they fluctuate in the extracellular matrix, and the intracellular matrix.
That's actually really awesome. Everybody's involved in such cool research. Oh my gosh, I love hearing that. All right, so this is actually a good one. Dr. Roper, we just got a question in the chat for you. Does Down syndrome affect males and females any differently, and does the sex of the mice you work with matter in the research?
That is a fantastic question, and that's actually one of the main things we look at in our mouse models and that we study in humans with Down syndrome is we study the differences between males and females. So one of the things that we see in humans with Down syndrome, one of the things that we see in humans with Down syndrome is we see that they suffer from osteoporosis or bone loss. Now, when we think about osteoporosis in humans, in normal humans, this usually hits females who are older the hardest. But it happens to be in Down syndrome, it hits younger males, and then it hits younger females. And so it hits the males first and then females. And these are starts to be seen in about their 30s, and then it gets worse as time goes on. And so that's something that we're trying to understand with our mouse models. And our mouse models show the same thing, that the bone deficits are different in and hit earlier in male mice than they do in female mice. We've got similar effects. We see similar different effects with males and females in our cognitive experiments as well. Fantastic question.
Thank you, Dr. Roper. That actually was very nice. Now, there was also, before I made everybody go back into their research about what they're doing exactly in their labs, I made Lori double check about this. It's let me pull it back up. Is it possible to do undergraduate research while studying abroad? Lori says, I would say there are different study abroad opportunities out there. You guys, you can work really well with the study abroad office to kind of find whatever you're really looking for. And again, Dr. Roper has mentioned there's obviously other research out there other than what's going on, and we do collaborate very closely with a lot of them. And we do know a computer science student who did research in Ireland, and I do know there was a physics student as well who actually got to go to Austria, I believe it was, and can I do research as well there. So she was there for like a week. It was the week before finals, I remember it, and she had a great time. So it is possible. Now, okay, so Alexis, there is a question for you in the chat. Are you ready? Okay. She always looks so apprehensive when I ask, so I have to make sure she gets ready. So somebody wants to know, what are your plans after graduating from Iupui? They're interested in forensics, but they're not really sure what career path they can kind of choose later on.
So my plans for after graduating is I'm actually going to medical school. So I'm currently doing the interviewing process and everything like that. Right now, I have been accepted into one, so go me. But there's a lot you can do with forensics. So a lot of forensics majors will actually double major and minor in other things. Dustin and I are in this same program. We're both forensic biology with biology. So with that, you can go into basically any science job you want. We've had people in Lilly, we've had people at Roche, we've had people at state police programs around the country. People go into genetics. Like, there's so many things you can do with forensics that you don't think you can do. And the good thing about our forensics program is the fact that we are the only accredited program within the tri-state area, and one of, I think, like 21 or so in the whole entire nation. Sorry, I used to work with our advisor over the summer, so I know this whole spiel inside and out. But it's not like our advisor likes to say, it's not a pigeonhole thing that you just get stuck in with government jobs. There's so many different things you can do, and with that chemistry minor too, you can even go and get chemistry jobs. There's limitless things that you can do with forensics degree.
I absolutely second that as a forensics student. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm very happy, and I hope the best for you on that, Alexis. Now, okay, so this is actually a good one for everybody here. So the question is, do you need to know about the topic that you're researching before you sign up, or can the topic be a learning experience for you as you work on the research project? So I guess all in all, did you know kind of anything about the subject you were going into when you went into research? I can see Alexa already kind of giving that grin.
Nope, I had no idea, not a single clue. I'm also a psychology major. So that also, I'm working in a neuroscience lab, which is really cool because I get to learn about something that I wouldn't necessarily know otherwise. And it still piques my interest. It's still under psychology, but it's more specifically focused on neuroscience. No, I had no idea. I had no idea. So it was really just like a very, very learning experience of like, okay, hi, this is weird, because I started as a freshman. So I popped up my freshman year and I was like, I'm supposed to be doing research? Okay. It's like, I work with rats? Okay. So it was really like, I'd never had any kind of experience regarding anything like that. But it was really, really cool to get accustomed to all that and be able to, now I feel like I definitely know what I'm doing. So it was really cool.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that, Dustin. Most people in my lab, I mean, they know about, they've seen people with Down syndrome, but we teach them everything that we can, and the longer that you do the research, the more you can learn. So to do that, we have regular lab meetings where people talk about their research, where we talk about other people's research, and our freshmen, all the students in our lab attend these lab meetings and are able to contribute. And the more they attend, the more they learn.
That's absolutely true. So what about you, David? Did you know anything about the topics that you were going to?
No, I was in the same spot as Alexa, not really, especially with the first lab, because the first lab that I was put in was Dr. Baucom's lab, or better known as AJ. His lab focused on, well, broad ranges, but his main focus is on understanding spinophyllin. And like, in all honesty, in terms of what I want to do in my professional career, I want to do microbiology and immunology, but being positioned in a neuroscience lab, didn't know anything about the bearing at that point because I was still a freshman. But as of the lab that I'm in now, going in, I did know a little bit about T. gondii, but the most I knew about is like finding cat poop. That's about it.
That's fair, yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, to answer the question, kind of wrap it up, you don't need to know really much about what you're going into research. It is definitely supposed to be a learning experience. So not only for you, but kind of the whole point of the research is kind of figuring things out. So, all right. Okay, so we got a variety of questions here. So started off, are the opportunities in research paid or volunteer? So this actually depends on one who you're researching with, but also if you're going through a program, because we did mention the undergraduate research opportunities program has grants available, stipends or funds for research material. So it really just depends, again, on that program. So again, Lori will be actually sending out a link that kind of goes through kind of all the programs and the possibilities that kind of come with that. Now, Alexa, you are a Norman Brown Scholar, correct? Yep. So do you want to kind of talk a little? Yeah.
Yeah.
Both. I'm both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit more about those two?
Yeah, no problem. I'm a Norman Brown Scholar, which is focused more on social justice and that kind of aspect and feeling a sense of belonging on campus. But for research, I focus on DSRP, so Diversity Scholars Research Program, I've kind of touched on. And you start your freshman year. Typically, I think they still accept people if you're already a student at IUPUI, but I accepted the scholarship when I was incoming. And I forgot the question. I'm not going to lie to you. Oh, right. The paid or volunteer. So DSRP is really cool in that it does up to in-state tuition, and they also have a housing stipend. I'm an out-of-state student, so the up to in-state tuition was applied to the fees for tuition, and then my secondary scholarship was able to cover the rest of it. So that's really cool about DSRP. It's still, the application is open, so please I really recommend this. It's really cool for underrepresented students to apply to the scholarship. It's a great opportunity. I sometimes think about it all the time. I'm like, wow, if I were anywhere else, would I have this opportunity to do research starting my freshman year? And I feel like it's a no anywhere else. So I'm very glad and thankful to have that opportunity. So apply for DSRP.
No, and we're very happy that you're here at IUPUI. It's been a joy to get to know Alexa. I can say that much. So I love that. All right, so here we go. Oh, my favorite one, it's a time management one. Somebody wants to know, is it easy to manage your time while doing research, especially if you are double majoring and having part-time jobs? Now, Dr. Roper, I actually kind of want to hear how you kind of work around students' schedules, I guess, that are doing research in your lab first off, and then we can kind of talk to the students as well.
So I will mention, just to follow up on the last question as well, a lot of the students in my lab take the lab for credit. So they actually get a course, they take it as a course, and in biology, one of the things that we do is we have a capstone course, so they're taking the lab for credit, and that's another option. Having to do with managing your time. So in my laboratory, and it's different from every laboratory, my laboratory, I require about 8 to 10 hours per week. And so students are able to fit that in their schedules. Usually it's according to their schedule. The one thing that we have is we have lab meetings, and everybody is required to go to lab meetings, and those are on Fridays. So we have 2 hours that are set aside on Fridays that everybody comes to. But other than that, people have their own schedules. And we understand if you have an exam or something, or just a bad week where you have a lot of stuff to do, yeah, it's a little lighter that week and you make it up the next week. So my students, I have a number of students that are double majoring and doing fantastic things everywhere that are doing research as well.
I absolutely agree. That's actually, it's again, the whole point of research. You're learning everything, like as much as you can. That's the whole point. You're doing a whole bunch of that, but also the people that you're doing research under very much care about not only your time, but also your personal feelings, which makes a huge difference. Especially as a college student, things can get pretty overwhelming. And I guess Alexa's also shaking her head. Everybody's like, yeah, for sure. Because I mean, it's very different from high school. So I guess, do you guys have anything to kind of talk about when it comes to managing your time as a student who's doing part-time jobs, double majoring, everything like that? Alexa's already like, let's go.
This question was written for me. I am double majoring. I have a part-time job and I'm doing research. You're talking about me. It can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes, but I'm really good with managing my time, so that's why I'm able to do all of these things. And I have the majors that I have, they're in two separate schools. So psychology is in the school of science, and interpreting is in the School of Liberal Arts. So not a lot of those classes overlap. So it's an even more like, okay, I have to make sure I get all my classes done. I have to make sure I have all my assignments done. I have to make sure I go to work. I have to make sure I get my hours in at the lab, because I do around 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours, just like Dr. Roper was saying. I have the same hours for my lab. So what I like to do is make sure I have all my class schedule figured out. And then when I have that, I'm like, okay, I have to go to my classes, then I do my homework, and then I can figure out whenever I have a chunk of time, this is my lab time, and then I go to lab, and then any remainder time is my free time. Because that's also important whenever you're managing your time and trying to fit out your schedule. Make sure that you have different spots to relax and to do any self-care, because it's really important too.
I almost couldn't find my unmute button, but Alexis, do you kind of have anything you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, so I also am in the same boat as Alexa, double majoring. I'm also double minoring. So I tacked on a creative writing minor because I thought I'd get bored with my life. As Dustin can attest to, I have not gotten bored at all. But I also have a part-time job. I'm also an organic chemistry TA, so I work on that too. There was a semester where I was working 3 jobs and had 19 credit hours. So time management has been something, if you don't know it now, you're going to learn it real fast. And you need to learn it real fast. I personally have a bullet journal that I use to put all my stuff in and write out my schedule each week, because it helps me to write it down. And I like to, it's a stress relief kind of thing. And I also have reminders on my phone for every single thing I do. I had a reminder on my phone to show up to this today. So it just like beeps at me. So it's really nice. But yeah, time management is something that is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the same boat. I actually set all of my stuff on my calendar on my phone, and I'll be like 30 minutes before, 10 minutes before, 10 days before. And I'm like, I will remember no matter what. So David, is it kind of the same way for you, or do you have like maybe something different that you might do for your time management? Or
Yes, for me, it's more of like getting scheduled, because like, again, I also work a bunch of jobs because I am an RA. I am a grader for the math department. Along with the job and my research, I have to mainly like plan out everything, but also be very forward with the professor that I'm working with. It's like, these are the set hours that I can only work in. So like sometimes just like I show up for 2 hours, and like granted, depending on sometimes experiments can be more than 2 hours. So it's more of just, I need to just make clear what I can do with that set time, because some experiments take longer than that. So it's just be very upfront in telling the PI that you're working under what hours you can and cannot work.
yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know, everybody has that kind of like that feeling of, I really want to succeed or impress somebody like that. But that's how you burn out pretty fast. So definitely, again, with that, taking care of yourself and kind of being very upfront about kind of what you can and can't do with that time really makes a difference. Now, David, since you did mention you're an RA, I do have one question in here that's perfect for that. Somebody says, a little off topic, but can anyone speak to on-campus living in the residence hall? So David, you can start, and then Alexa will definitely come after you.
Like what specifically? Or
I mean, you can talk about just on-campus living in general. I mean, definitely since you have more experience with Riverwalk, you can kind of talk about what it's like living in there.
So in terms of on-campus housing, I would stray away from Riverwalk as a freshman, just because if you're more the person that wants the like a more social like life on campus, I would suggest the freshman dorms, which would be Tower and Ball. But I mean, North Hall is also an option, which is where I was my freshman year. But yeah, I really did enjoy living on campus in those areas just because I was in an RBLC specifically, which was the STEM community. So that put me with a bunch of other STEM majors. So, and also throughout the entire freshman year, I got to have classes with a lot of people that lived in the dorms. So I was able to actively collaborate with all the people that lived in the dorms rather than having to make friends with people that coming in, I didn't know any of them, but at the same time, just be able to like walk to someone's dorm, knock on their door and ask like, hey, can you help me with this? Rather than having to like text someone if you're more into the personal connections than digital.
Yeah. And actually, again, Riverwalk's definitely more of a apartment living kind, so it's going to be different for everybody. North Hall is definitely that dorm style, but I do have a couple friends in Riverwalk that absolutely love it, and that's definitely people or women in science, which is Women in Science House, so WISH. They love it, so you get a stipend within there, or not a stipend, but a scholarship with it. So it really just, again, depends on kind of what you're looking for, especially your freshman year, because I know I would have chose Riverwalk because I love the independence, and I've just never really liked dorms. So it's always going to be a hit or miss. Just depends on who you are. And Alexa is definitely going to talk about North Hall, so I'll hand it over to her.
I love North Hall so much. I see there is a question about which one do you prefer? North Hall. I've never lived in University Tower, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I do really, 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 really like North Hall, especially as a freshman. Maybe not so now, because I feel like I've grown a little bit. So now I have like, okay, I'm kind of an adult now, so I have to like get that, apartment style living. But the dorms are definitely your go-to if you are coming in as a freshman, because you're going to meet people, and that's really my favorite part. I'm an out-of-state student. I think I mentioned that before, but I didn't know anyone and I was coming to campus, so I showed up and I went and I moved into my dorm, and I was like, oh man, I gotta meet people. I gotta talk to people. And I used to be really shy. I was so shy. So I was so nervous when I went to go see people. And kind of like what David was saying, I really just stepped out of my room. I turned the corner and I went in the next person's room because everybody's door was open to try to like socialize. So I was like, hi, I'm Alexa. I'm your neighbor. Nice to meet you. And that's how I met my friends. That's how I met everyone that I'm really close to now. And that's how you build connections and how you get comfortable at Iupui. It's one of my most memorable parts of my college experience. So live at North Hall, please.
God, everybody always raves about North Hall. So that being said, I will say the University Tower versus North Hall thing, again, really just depends on who you are as a person, because it's going to be different for everybody. Again, I love independence. I would live in like an apartment in a heartbeat as a freshman. So doesn't really matter to me. I've always been easier when it comes to socializing with people. So it wasn't too hard for me. But again, it's a great kind of, I don't want to say stepping stone, but kind of safety blanket for kind of transitioning from home life and everything like that, because it is a lot different. So actually, University Tower, a lot of freshmen live there. It's definitely more like a dorm style that you'll see. I think there's like 3 or 4 people per room. It's definitely more of a hotel style, but it is still really nice. Now, North Hall is our newest residence hall, so a lot of students do like that. And you do also have those residence-based learning communities like STEM that really make a difference. So again, I'm going to say I don't have a preference. It really just depends on kind of what you're looking for as a person. So that's my opinion on it. But as Alexa will say, North Hall is the best hall, depending on what you're looking for. So there's that. Now, all right, here's a good question. Can David and Alexa share their plans after graduation?
I guess I'll go first. Why are you reminding me? Oh my gosh, I'm a junior. Let me live. I'm kidding. I'd like to go to graduate school. So after graduation, I'd like to go to graduate school, and using my other major, I'm hoping to interpret for a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of simple. Graduate school, I'm not sure I've looked at schools. I'm not really sure yet. Please don't stress me out. But hopefully everything will be fine.
Oh yeah, for sure. What about you, David? What are your plans?
So I plan on pursuing a PhD program in microbiology and immunology just because I really like bacteria, especially because of my interest in bacteria. I'd say mainly started from high school when I took my microbiology class, because I looked through the textbook a lot to see all these. Granted, it's not the best thing to look at just because diseases can get really disgusting, but just understanding bacteria itself and the role they play in our daily lives, that's what I really enjoy.
I love that. It's, again, I will always say this, it's hard to find what you're passionate about. So I don't know. I love hearing when people are like, yeah, I found this so fascinating and now it's what I'm doing. And it's like, you get so much joy from it. So no, I love that. And especially, it might be different for everybody where it's like, you might think you really love biology, but then you'll take a course like chemistry or something like that. And you find out like, oh, okay, wait a minute. That's kind of what I really love. So I always like to say the School of Science, it's really easy to actually switch between the majors because a lot of your general kind of courses like your Bio 101, Chem 105, things like that are going to overlap throughout your degrees. So don't feel pressured right off the bat. I know a lot of my friends have kind of switched majors, and it's just all about finding what you're passionate about. Now, okay, here we go. So this one says, what is the difference between a dual degree and a double major? So this is mostly just on the basis of kind of how you talk about it. Double major, typically people think it's more of like you're in kind of more of the same field, while a dual degree is kind of something a little, yeah, okay. So I had to Google it just to be sure because I was like, wait a minute. But yeah, a dual degree generally means like you're studying two really different fields with like Alexa, psychology and American Sign Language are in two very different schools. So that would definitely kind of be more of the dual degree. For example, while double major is more biology and forensics, they just kind of overlap pretty easily. Now, I don't know if any of you have actually had any study abroad experience. So, okay, Alexa, nobody's shaking their head yes. So I will try my best to help you out with this. So actually, Dr. Roper, have you had any students that have studied abroad at all or presented research internationally or nationally, I guess? Actually, and it looks like Lori actually put in a whole like study abroad at Iupui information as well, since again, we don't have personal experience, but here you go, Dr. Roper.
I've had students that have done a semester of studying abroad. And one particular student basically took time off and just took time off from the laboratory and did her studies of abroad semester and then came back into the lab. I've also had students, there's shorter study abroads that when we get a spring break, you can kind of do over spring break. And I've had a number of students do those types of experience. And I would really recommend study abroad. This is a fantastic time to do study abroad, fantastic time to see the world, especially under a university umbrella. So I would really encourage study abroad. I think it's fantastic. I've been abroad. Great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Lori put all that information in the chat regarding the study abroad programs that we do offer. I know there are like science specific ones as well as English, anything like that. So if you do find yourself doing a double major or in like say biology and creative writing, we probably have a program that'll fit, into your curriculum. Now, here we go. Okay, so last question, because we are coming up on time. This one is for Alexa specifically. And somebody said, how have you enjoyed the college experience and what is some advice you would give?
So, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. I really enjoyed the college experience. Like I really pushed myself to, as you can tell. So this is actually the first semester I've gone below 17 credit hours. I think actually no. Up until last semester was the first semester I had 17. Other semester I had 18 or 19. I just try to get really involved as much as I can throughout college. I started off in North Hall and on the STEM floor and tried to just be Yep, Alexa. But I started off there to try to get more integrated in campus. From there, I went on to Betco Learning Center, was a K103 mentor for 2 years. And then I went into LHSI. So I was with LHSI for a year, went into organic chemistry, PLTL leading. And then I got my job. I left LHSI and then went into the on-campus internship program to be in my lab with Dr. Sandusky. But I think my best advice for college is just don't be afraid to ask questions, because honestly, if I went and talked to Dr. Sandusky my freshman year about pathology, because I had an interest in being a forensic pathologist when I was a freshman when I first came in. And I went and talked to him about that. And I went and talked to him the next year after I left my LHSI position. And I was like, I really want to get into pathology. I really want to learn more about this. And he was like, well, you know, I don't really have any openings for the summer, but if you want to join us in the fall, you can. And I was like, okay. So like, just don't be afraid to go talk to people. Don't be afraid to go talk to your professors, and don't be afraid to like try out as many things as you can. Like I'm majoring in 2 science degrees, minoring in chemistry, and then I got a freaking creative writing degree, like just something for fun. So just don't be afraid to try stuff out and do as much as you can.
Yeah, just definitely find what you're passionate about. Now, this one I can definitely answer. So how are the class sizes for most of the classes in biology and forensics majors? So again, you do have a big overlap between biology and forensic biology, or chemistry and forensic chemistry. So they're going to be roughly the same, but you're going to kind of notice starting off, your class sizes are going to be a lot larger. So I think my Bio 101 class was about 150 to 200 students, but it really wasn't that intimidating because Dr. Mars is such a wonderful woman. See, David, Alexis, everybody's just shaking their heads like, absolutely. Everybody will fall in love with Dr. Mars. She's such a kind and wonderful woman. So while it might seem like it's such a large class, she makes it definitely not seem that way. But you do also have what are called recitations tacked onto that. So Alexis is kind of shaking her head. As you know, she worked for BEPCO. So with those recitations, you're kind of broken off into, I think it's about 10 to 15 students for biology and about, I think roughly like 10 students for chemistry, at least like right now, given Kilburn. So again, while those classes seem really large, you're breaking off to make sure you're kind of actually getting an understanding for it. And if you're somebody who doesn't like to kind of ask questions in a large lecture, which is absolutely fine, you're more than welcome to speak to your recitation leader. You know, that's kind of what they're there for. They're really just making sure you kind of have a firm grasp of kind of what you're learning. Now, the further you get on with your career, your classes drop exponentially in size. I think it's about 25 students in my forensics class right now. So that's quite a difference, as you can tell. So again, it's like once you start getting out of those general courses of like chemistry 105, biology 101, which is typically after like your freshman year, you will see a dramatic decrease in size. And it definitely, while it might seem like very intimidating, they do get very personable. I loved all my professors, and I have nothing bad to say about it. So yeah, so don't feel intimidated by it. Again, just because it's those general courses, but your teachers typically strive to kind of make like a one-on-one connection. And you can see that from everybody shaking their head about Dr. Mars. She's a wonderful woman. Now, that being said, we have run out of questions. So thank you everybody for that. And Lori actually put in the chat just real quick about our science visit page about on-campus and virtual options, if you guys want to check those out and kind of want to tour over the whole campus. So I do know everybody's time is very valuable. So I do want to thank the panel. So Dr. Roper, David, Alexis, and Alexa for joining us today. And to also everybody who tuned in. So thank you. We're very excited that you guys are considering Iupui, and we do want to share more. So we will be back in March with a series of 9 JAG days, each one based on one of our 9 science academic units. So Lori will be putting that link in the chat so you guys can sign up to receive a reminder for those events. Now, also, before we do go, I wanted to let you guys know that Iupui and the School of Science are reopening to on-campus visits beginning February 11th. And again, that's that link that Lori actually put in the chat. So Iupui itself has campus tours Monday through Friday and the occasional Saturday, should you need it. So we'll be giving school science tours on Thursdays and Fridays with social distancing and your safety as priority, obviously. So we encourage you guys to visit in person if you guys are able to. You'll probably get to meet me face to face, and I'm more than happy to give tours. And everybody who's given tours are wonderful people, so they're well trained and pretty much can answer any question that you got. Now, you guys, again, can sign up under Plan a Visit, I believe, on the IUPUI admissions webpage or through that link that Lori has sent. Now, also, there is going to be a survey that pops up at the end of the event. You guys want to take a couple minutes to kind of provide us some feedback and let us know what what you want to know so we can plan future events. That'd be wonderful. So make sure you guys are keeping an eye out on your email for a follow-up to this event. So that's going to contain all those links that we talked about today to learn more about kind of studying science at IUPUI and again, that study abroad as well. And kind of how you can also speak to our recruiter, Lori Hart, who has also been, again, behind the scenes answering any questions that you guys might have. So if you guys want to, you can email us at science@iupui.edu with any questions. And I mean any questions. We're more than happy to help. So stay healthy and happy, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.